Good afternoon. I'm Karishma Brombeck, Client Success Manager with NovaPower Cloud Solutions, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. You're all muted to ensure good quality. However, if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box located on the right-hand side, and we'll do our best to answer them during today's presentation. If we can't get them answered today, we will follow up by email to get you a better answer. Today's webinar on our cloud solution will be delivered by John Olson, our Chief Technical Officer. John has over 20 years of experience in delivering enterprise monitoring solutions in the IoT, power monitoring, and building automation space. So John, I'll give the mic to you.
All right, thank you, Karishma. Thanks everyone for joining the webinar today. We're going to be introducing you to our solution, NovaPower Cloud solution, and our application called NovaVue. So let's get started. We're going to have a few slides and a quick demonstration of the product. I'm also lucky, are lucky to be joined today by Jason D'Antona. He is one of our from one of our showcase clients, Massachusetts General Hospital. Jason, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself for a minute and let everyone know who you are.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, hi, my name's Jason D'Antona. I'm the Director of Engineering Utilities for what was formerly known as Partners Healthcare. It's now Mass General Brigham. We're a healthcare, nonprofit healthcare organization in Massachusetts, premier academic medical centers, two top 10 academic medical centers, Mass General Hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and we have about 68,000 employees, over 5,000 physicians, and 21 facilities throughout Eastern Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts, and a couple in New Hampshire as well.
Thanks, Jason. A little bit later in the presentation, I'm going to ask you to just share your experience with us and our product. But we're going to do a few slides before that. Again, my name is John Olson. I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO of NovaPower Cloud Solutions. My background is I have a degree in electrical engineering. I've been a network engineer for about 25 years with a specialty in cloud computing platforms and IoT integration. So NovaPower Cloud Solutions is really a marriage of IT, advanced cloud-based monitoring, and deep experience within the power and building automation, facilities management, and operations groups. So we bring the best of both worlds and experience into NovaVue. So let's take a look initially at what problem we are here to solve, if you will. We found that there were many customers we talked to that had real legacy system issues, and although there were quite a few, they tend to boil down into the ones you see on your screen right now, which is typically that the legacy systems have a single on-premise head end, meaning that the data that's collected from meters or devices in the facilities is being sent to a device that's sitting usually in an office someplace, not even typically in a data center. Many times we see it just on a desktop that's in a facilities manager or engineer's office on the floor someplace. It's just sort of an old school way of doing those things, which obviously leads to lots of potential problems like data corruption or loss. Physical drives become old, systems become old, people spill cups of coffee on them. I mean, literally, we have seen that. And obviously that does not lead to long-term fidelity of the data and a capability of really offering a best-in-breed solution. And oftentimes there are multiple head ends. So individual manufacturers have software for their products and their devices, but they don't support other companies' products or devices. So if you have your electric power meters on one system, HVAC, water, gas on other systems, you might have to log in to 2 or 3 or more systems just to get all of that data. The software typically is pretty old, on the order of 10 to 15 to 20 years old. In many cases, it doesn't run on modern web browsers anymore. It offers very limited offsite access because of the way that it's configured. And it really ends up giving our customers lots of limited data blind spots. They can't see efficiency, they can't see capacity, and they end up doing risky short-term spot studies when they really need the data. They can't go to the system that they have, so they bring in someone to go do a short-term load study for 2 weeks or a month or something like that, and those have all sorts of inherent physical risks associated with getting them done. And it really shouldn't be that way if they have a system in place that can be collecting that data all the time and make easy access to it. So that's where we come in. Nova Power is a purpose-built IoT framework for this type of information. We are a hybrid cloud-based architecture. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but essentially it means that while we still collect the data on-premise in your facility, we stream that data up into the cloud and save that long-term for reporting and storage and trending and so forth over many, many years. We operate completely as an overlay topology, meaning we're not asking you to rip out anything that you've already got most of the time, right? So we can just come in, sit on top of what you've already got, and start pulling that data in. We're totally vendor agnostic. You'll see this in the demo. We have lots of different vendors, OEMs, devices, meter types, data types coming into a single platform. And that platform is highly resilient. It's cloud-based. It's global. There's no single point of failure. There's nothing that can be kicked over or unplugged that is going to drop the data for you. And because of that, we offer tremendous flexibility and scalability. We offer a long-term platform for predictive analytics, because as we are collecting that data, we can make intelligent decisions about that data and begin to predict what's going to happen in the future with based on the trends that we've seen in the past. So that really offers an advanced level of visibility that the existing OEMs are not providing today. We support all of the major protocols. This is just a few of them. This is not all of them, but these are sort of the main ones that the meters and sensors in today's systems work with. So traditionally Modbus, BACnet, some devices have SNMP, LawnWorks, and others. We support all of them. We can get the data from any of these types and different types. So meter 1 could be Modbus, meter 2 could be BACnet. We can bring them all into a single platform. This is a little representation of some of the devices and some of the manufacturers that we have worked with. There are many others beyond this as well, but you can see it's a pretty good representation of the major industry players. And again, we're collecting this data from multiple protocols depending on the manufacturer, and even sometimes within manufacturers, supporting different protocols, different physical connection types, and so forth. So again, one of the major advantages for us is just the ability to condense all of this, consolidate it into a single pane of glass for you as a user. The platform then is going to make that data available to you via our web portal, via our iOS or iPhone application. So it's very easy to use. You can see all the data right on your phone or on your iPad, or of course with any web browser. We have one-touch data download. So if you want to download the data via CSV or PDF, it's very easy to do that. We offer full device management within the portal, so you can actually even add devices to the system yourself. You can change names, or if they get re-IP addressed or something like that, you can do that yourself. Obviously, we can help you do that as well, but the application gives you all of that management capability. We have some very specialized functions like our virtual devices and meters. I'm going to show that in the demo, but What that means is that you could sum or perform some other mathematical function on the meter information, and then call the result of that a virtual meter. So, for example, if you needed to sum up 3 or 4 meters from ATSs, transfer switches, you could sum those up, call that a virtual meter, and that would be the sum of the load that's going from a particular generator or something, let's say. And you can do more than just sum. You can test different scenarios out, add this one, subtract that load, whatever, and see what the result will be live in real time. We have onboard QR device tagging. So our application, the iPhone app, is able to scan a QR code. So a little kind of 1 inch by 1 inch or 2 inch by 2 inch QR code can be put on a device. And instead of having to open it up or, put CTs on it or try to find where the data is going, someone with our app can walk right up to it, scan it, and get the data from that device immediately. We support waveform capture, configurable alarm set points, customizable alarm notifications, and really anything that you would need to be able to continuously monitor the device health, performance, and so forth of any of the critical metrics that you need. So again, what we normally run into when we work with a client is that there is an existing on-premise system. Very few customers have nothing. Some have nothing. Some literally are still walking around and writing down data that they can see on the front panel display from a meter. But in many cases, there is an existing local head end. And again, we're not asking you to replace that. We drop in right on top of that. We put our agent on site, so that's our piece of software that does collect the data either from the meters or potentially even from some other existing on-premise system via an API. We push that data up into the cloud for long-term storage, event management, and so forth, and then have a more intelligent layer even on top of that, which allows for the analytics, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, and so forth. The way this works in practice from an architecture perspective is that agent has adapters on it, what we call adapters, and those support all of the different protocols that we talked about. And again, if there's a device or something that we haven't run into or protocol we haven't run into, it's very easy for us to add a new adapter to our agent to begin collecting that data from the various vendor devices. We can send that data up into our global secure cloud infrastructure via an on-premise internet connection or via LTE. It's 5G obviously is being rolled out, which is going to allow very dramatic speed changes and access changes for that type of information. So whether you're in a facility in a city with great internet access, or you've got a SCADA system out in remote locations, we can still gather the data. We can still send it up via some mechanism into our cloud, from which you then use the WebView or the iOS app, and soon to be our NovaVue Android app as well, for any of those multiple devices and multiple vendors that we've talked about. That our web app is a very modern web app supported by any current browser. Our iOS app obviously is for Apple devices, iPhones and iPads today, but we will be rolling out an Android application soon as well. The web app itself is very, very easy to use for trending, for data download, for viewing events and alarms, doing things like waveform captures. We'll get into this and show it, but it's very clean, it's very easy to use, and I think if you compare it to what you would normally get from a legacy OEM vendor today, you would see that it's much more simple and easy to use, and a little more, I would say, a little quickly to identify how to get to things. It's not as complicated, a little more intuitive. Data downloads, I mentioned earlier, CSV files, PDFs, alarms, event history, a location geo mapping dashboard so you can see right away where everything is any devices. If you are spread out over multiple locations, you can hover over them or click on them, see what that is, drill down into it at one click into the data. This is what those QR codes would look like, actually. So it's very simple. You could put a QR code on a generator or outside a door of an electric room or closet, or even in a wall on your desk. And if you need information about something very quickly or need to give access to information, maybe to an outside technician or even a regulatory body that's interested in information, it's very easy for you to just say, hey, grab this app, scan this QR code, and get that data right away. We are being used in many different applications. Obviously, remote facility management is the most obvious, because if you're not there on site but you need that data, you can get it very quickly. Also, the combination of multiple devices, multiple data types, multiple systems, multiple vendors, all into a single pane of glass for your key performance indicator assessment and reporting needs is a major win for us compared to others. You know, people who are doing ASHRAE 90.1 energy monitoring and other demand profiles really find what our application does for them much simpler than what they're doing today. And for those doing utility cost management or sub-metering for tenants, this is a real simple way of getting that information and being able to get it out quickly, compare it to a utility bill, or use it as the way, again, in sub-metering to more effectively calculate actual energy usage than doing something like a square footage percentage. Jason, I have a slide here for you, just about kind of, if you could give a few minutes on how things were running within Mass General Brigham before we were involved, and now the changes in your day-to-day life after Nova Power.
Yeah, thank you, John. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm not on mute. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's really impressed us, and the reason why I agreed to talk today on your behalf, is that, you know, our facilities kind of grew over time and were a conglomerate of different entities, and each entity had their own select vendor or select system. Some of the entities, in fact, had multiple systems. You know, those systems are building automation, building control, also metering systems, and you know, they were all purpose built, and they served their purpose, which was dealing with you know, their individual facility building, or even in some cases a portion of the building. But they weren't it was very difficult for us to get an across the board understanding of what was going on across our facilities. We tried using some of the OEMs to integrate the other types of systems, working with one OEM trying to integrate another, and we found that it was kind of difficult, and frankly it was quite expensive to get the information. And with the legacy systems, because they were more designed for the control sphere, they really weren't geared to being able us to have the fidelity of the data, or actually the security of the data and accessibility. So when we first started talking with John about a year ago, we were really impressed on how easily we were able to integrate a number of different systems in a very short period of time, and have that data aggregated in a single location. And you know, since we started our first beta site with just a few devices, we've been able to integrate across multiple facilities, different types. We've integrated obviously electrical metering. We've done, as John mentioned, some emergency generators. We've done some UPS systems. We're working on some temperature controls for some of our critical spaces. And now we've been able to even integrate some of our renewable. We have some photovoltaics, and we actually have the PV systems all tied together. And I guess the one thing that's really impressed me is when we access this data, it's all uniform, it's all in one place, and we're not having to log into multiple different systems, and we can access it off-site.
Great, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. And so we're going to take a few minutes. I'm going to dive into a live demonstration of the product. Um, and then when we come out of the demonstration, we're going to have some time available for question and answers. Everyone's on mute. All the attendees are on mute, but you can use the chat functionality to type in questions if you have any. So if any have come up already during the presentation, now might be a good time to type or just get prepared to so that we have some questions lined up for when we come out of the demo. So I'm gonna switch over into a live system here. This is actually part of the system for Jason's campus there at Massachusetts General Hospital and Brigham and Women's Hospital. So we'll be using some of those systems as demonstrations, as well as some other systems here. The once you log in, and I should make note, this is fully role-based access control. So I'm logged in, I'm an administrator, I can see everything, but we can of course separate that out. So if you have an individual building manager or facility manager or somebody that's only responsible even for certain devices, maybe the electric meters but not the HVAC or vice versa, you can set it up so that they can only see the devices that they're supposed to be able to see. When you everything of course is in a hierarchical structure or along the left hand side here. You can pick a device. As I drill into that device, here's the data for today from this particular transfer switch, which is feeding a chiller. You can very quickly, this is move between different metrics. So in this system, we're showing current, voltage, power factor, total energy, kVA, and kW, and it's as simple as an individual click to move from one to the other. And it's also a simple click to move into a longer periods of time, right? So as I move around or pick an individual piece of time, so you can see what this looks like. You can also see if there's been any events. So we have a few, this is a demo device, so we have a few example things like waveform captures. You can dive right into that. You can see there was a voltage sag condition here. We can, if you hover over any of these, you get down to the millisecond time intervals. We can move into any of the waveform captures that would have been snapshotted from this device during this event. You can easily print those out and email those off as well. In this case, we also, in fact, I'm going to show a similar example on some other devices where we are using the virtual meter that I discussed earlier. So in this particular location, we have 4 transfer switches that all are added together and are represented by this emergency generator. Now, obviously, this generator is not running right now, but we can sum the loads that it feeds through these transfer switches and get a representation of what that would look like over time. And if I go back even a full year or back to October, you can see that there's been a huge spike recently, probably weather related, right? It's getting a lot warmer in Boston over the last week, and so there's a big spike there. But if you had been doing, let's say, a load study and you had picked some other time frame, and done 1 or 2 weeks in here, you would have thought, hey, maybe the peak load was, 1,000 amps or something like that. But that's not realistic, because now as the weather gets warmer, that peak load is going to be much, much higher. And so being able to actually see this over time, a long period of time, and get a realistic understanding of what that load would be. And of course, if you're being asked to add something else to this building or this generator, to know that you would have that capacity and be able to see that over historical data is super critical. Likewise, if I move down through some of the other things that Jason talked about, here's a temperature sensor. So this is a thermal sensor showing temperature over, and again, I'm in the year, but let's maybe look at the last week. You can see, over an individual day, the peaks and valleys of temperature. At this location, we're also pulling in inverter data from a PV installation, and obviously you can see, as the sun comes and goes during the day, we're going to get more and more power out of or less power out of those inverters. And it's easy to switch between this data. It's a transfer switch, it's a temperature sensor, it's PV. It could be a receptacle panel someplace. I've got lots of those in some of these systems. So whatever that data is, it doesn't matter. You can move through it seamlessly. You can get to it. If I wanted to download this data with a simple click into an Excel file or print it out as a PDF, we can do that with a single click in the system. As we mentioned earlier, we have the map view, so I can kind of move around, drill down, see the different places that I've got devices, hover over maybe a device, see what's there. Maybe I'm interested in getting, information from that one. I click on it, I'm right back into that, right? So this is another transfer switch, and I can get that data. So it's easy and seamless to move around between the view, the global view from a geo perspective of the systems down into the individual devices, and then within that device, move around time frames, move around KPIs or different points, and get that information out. And of course, if there are any events, if there are any snapshots, if we, for an ATS, for example, we would be able to show the state of the transfer switch. So whether it's in normal or in emergency, or a UPS, whether it's in bypass, and so forth. If there's state related information to a particular device that we're monitoring, we give all of that just at a single view, at a single glance, directly from the both the web portal view, which of course we're looking at now, and the iOS application. So with that, that's a quick view, obviously, or a quick demo. We're trying to keep this webinar to about a half an hour. Obviously, if anybody's interested in getting a more in-depth view of what we can do, we'd love to set up a time to show it all off for you. But for now, we wanted to use this time as a quick overview. And then with the few minutes we have left before the bottom of the hour here, we'll leave it open for any questions. So, Karishma, do we have any questions that have been typed in?
We do. We have quite a few. However, I'm only going to go over 3 since we're almost at the 30-minute mark. The first one is from Noah. He said, do you only sell to hospitals or do you also work with other kinds of companies?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with we tend to say that we support critical infrastructure. So obviously hospitals are included in that, data centers, facility management systems, um, airports, anybody that, and it really could be anything. We're not limited or specialized in hospitals. We're kind of using Massachusetts General Brigham and Women's today as a showcase hospital client, but absolutely we support lots of different types of customers.
All right. Sarah is asking, what is the frequency of the polling data from a meter?
Well, that's a good question. So it's completely configurable. So you can use any frequency you wish. We default to 1 minute, so which is typically very frequent compared to others. So 15 minutes in the industry, if you use the default for other systems, is normally what you get. We default to 1 minute. If you need it or would like it to be longer than that, like 5 minutes or 10 or 15, you absolutely can set that. But we actually default to 1 minute. So very, very high fidelity of the data.
All right. And Tom is asking, can I make my own virtual devices / metrics?
Yes, that's a good question. Also, yeah. So we talked about the virtual meters, the virtual devices. You can make your own. So right through the management part of the application, you can create a new virtual meter, give it whatever name you want, pick which loads that you already have in the system you want to use to sum or perform whatever calculation you wish, and then that virtual meter will be the representation of that result. So absolutely, you have full control over that.
Great. Thank you so much, John. If you guys had any other questions, we will email attendees individually to answer them. Please pass this link along to anyone you think might be interested. And thank you for taking the time today. We hope to see you on our next webinar. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.